Landlords. Can't live with them, can't live without them. Because they have the homes and you sure do need a place to live. And while some might advocate for alternative land ownership systems, in the world the rest of us live in, just about everyone is going to be a renter for at least some part of their lives. So it's worth understanding what the rights and responsibilities of renters are. Let's start by defining some basic terms and relationships. The landlord owns the place. Their name is on the deed. The property manager makes sure the place is maintained, usually by working with vendors like plumbers or electricians. Sometimes your landlord and property manager are the same. The tenant is you. When you pay rent, that money is collected by the manager, used to pay property taxes, maintenance, and the manager themselves. Then the rest is received by the landlord as rental income. All of these overlapping roles, each trying to make a buck, might make you think that homeownership or even joining a housing co-op is cheaper, which is a big yes, but that'll have to wait for a future video. For now though, let's get into the contract that creates this web of relationships in the first place, the lease. Leases, plain and simple, set the terms of the rental. You should always read it over in full before signing, and if you don't understand it all, have someone you trust who's law savvy look it over with you. Here's what you should be looking for in particular: how much your rent is, which utilities are included in the rent, how long you're renting for, the policy on pets if you have any, rules on subleasing, and the amount of your security deposit. And I'll explain what those last two are in a bit. The lease will also spell out what, if any, transformations are allowed to be made to the place. Anything from redoing the entire carpet to nailing one hole into the wall may or may not be allowed, though most landlords only allow few, if any, modifications. They say they're protecting their investment. I say they hate fun. Like drilling, another practice often forbidden by landlords is subleasing. One reason landlords don't like it is it makes our web of relationships even more complicated. In a sublease situation, the original tenant becomes a landlord to the subtenant, while still being bound by the rules and rent obligation of their own lease, and they'll usually use any rent collected from the sub to help pay that. This is different from roommates, legally called co-tenants, who are all bound by the same lease to the same landlord. As I said, your lease will also set the amount of your security deposit. In most jurisdictions, you're entitled to that amount when you move out, and if the landlord wants to deduct any of it, they must explain exactly what repairs it's being used on. This is one reason why it's super important to document the exact state your apartment is in when you arrive, with pictures, video, and even measurements. The other reason is that landlords and managers are required by law to provide safe and sanitary living conditions. If something in your new home changes for the worse, it's so much easier to get that fixed with a clear before and after. Alternatively, if you don't like having a swarm of bees for a co-tenant or a stovetop flamethrower, you do have a legal means to move out immediately. This is called constructive termination of a lease and also applies if a landlord or property manager commits a crime against you, such as assaulting you, spying on you, or stealing your stuff, all of which are unfortunately things that can happen. While this will always allow you to exit your lease early without owing future rent, local laws may entitle you to monetary damages or even a refund on past rent, though this does require you to go after your landlord or property manager in court, which, let's be honest, who really has the time and money for that? And this goes both ways. If you violate your end of the lease, such as by falling behind on rent, then you can be evicted, in which case you'll likely still owe any unpaid rent and pay possible damages depending on the reason for the eviction. This might sound like the deck is stacked against tenants here, and in many places it is. If you're looking for a place to rent, do some research into what rights you as a tenant have under the laws of the city and state or province you'll be moving to. Then, once you find a place, make sure you read over and understand your lease in full before signing. If you've got to be a tenant, you might as well be a smart one. Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, you can subscribe, check out my other stuff, or do an engagement by smashing those like or comment buttons. Whatever you choose, remember that while adulting may be scary, we're all in this together.